Good afternoon. I'm back. It's Tuesday, September 1st, 2020, and I'm broadcasting to you live today for the first time in better part of 3-4 weeks, and it's kind of strange to be here. Um, anyway, uh, this is going to be my first broadcast of the month and of the fall, autumn season. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Had the coffee earlier, so I don't have that to distract me. The theme today. Oops, I just realized I don't have the microphone on. Excuse me. There, that's better. Okay. The theme today is to kind of look backwards a little bit and look at the present and look a little bit forwards, meaning that in terms of astro events and just general stuff, because it's been a while. It's been a good while. The sabbatical, the break was great. The holiday was great. Took some time in the countryside of beautiful Suffolk County and rejuvenated, read a lot, didn't do much of anything else. So here's the deal. It's the end of, I said this a long time ago when, 20 years or so, I was a channel and did channeling, Archangel Ariel. And one of the quips that she would often make is, I've got good news and I've got bad news. Which do you want to hear first? And they, the audience, this public events, would always say, oh, give us the bad news first, let's get that out of the way. And it's like, it's the end of the world as you know it. And then she said, you want to hear the good news? And they'd say, yeah. And she'd say, the end of the world is nigh. It's the end of the world as you know it, which is funny because I think that was actually a song by REM. And so the whole thing around this concept of being challenged by the crisis that we currently find ourselves in for a lot of reasons. Crisis, again, being a Latin or ancient term, meaning an opportunity for growth and change. Same thing for apocalypse, actually, is that we are finding out more about what we're made of and what we're not made of than at any time in recent memory, probably. Yes, things out there are challenging and chaotic and polarized like crazy. And it is triggering anything that we've got or any of our polarities. Where are we hiding from our deepest desires and needs? Where are we hiding, secrets that we've been keeping from ourselves or keeping from others? This is kind of pulling up all the muck, and a good case in point is this past weekend. I don't know if anybody listening right now or anybody who will listen to this will go, gosh, it was a weird weekend, very emotional or very exhausting or triggering. And so just as a recap, we had Venus. Venus was as of Friday, starting to make an opposition in Venus in Cancer, opposing, first of all, a few days before that, opposing Jupiter retrograde in Capricorn, followed by, that was on the 26th, and then on the 29th, we had, which was Saturday, we had Venus opposing Pluto at retrograde in Capricorn. And then on Sunday, Monday, it's still kind of the same thing. We're not out of the woods yet. We've got Venus in Cancer about to oppose Saturn retrograde in Capricorn. So now during this whole time, a small asteroid goddess known as Black Moon Lilith, that represents the dark feminine or dark moon, is squaring this whole hot mess. And I think there are a lot of things around security, because it's Cancer, Venus in Cancer, security, what kind of love works best for you, what kind of relationships work best for you, or for anybody, what kind of feelings does one get in one's current relationship? Are you feeling empowered, disempowered, drained, revitalized, excited, passionate, or are you feeling rather bereft and lost and so forth? with this kind of personal energy, the feminine energy, the loving energy, being opposed by 3 major outer retrograde planets, all in the sign of Capricorn, there can be a sense of the joy kind of getting sucked out, or the dark underbelly of relationship or relationships coming up, our emotional landscape being greatly disturbed by this. In the mythology, both biblical and otherwise, Lilith was a bit of a loner, a rebel. She did not want to be obedient to Yahweh or Jehovah or the Judaic God of the Old Testament, and did not want to be subservient to Adam. So she took off before the whole Garden of Eden thing happened and collapsed. And so I kind of call her the biker chick of the Old Testament, but she has got a lot more depth to that, to that definition, that she's represents the wronged woman, or all of femininity and womanhood being wronged by the patriarchy. She also represents the dark feminine, the wild woman, the woman that's been an outcast in society and branded a slut or a whore or a troublemaker or a witch, all those things. And so it's interesting that she's squaring or making a hard 90-degree angle to this polarity between Venus and the 3 planets in Capricorn. It shows, and Mars isn't too far away, and Mars is our big star attraction, has been for August, and it will be for September, October. The Mars transit in Aries, and Black Moon Lilith in Aries. I mean, she's going to stay very, very slow, very much staying put at around 24, 25 degrees Aries, but it's not going to be much more than 8 days before Mars goes retrograde on the 9th in Aries and starts going back over and squaring Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in that order. Right up to, that's when he goes retrograde, but then on October 9th, I think it is, or 6th, that's when he squares the big 3. So we've got more to come, It's going to feel a bit weird, and we're especially coming up to the American election, especially coming up to October, which is historically a difficult time in any year, in any decade, for financial markets and so forth. So it's worth keeping an eye on all this. Now, let's fall back into the main theme of today, which is what do you do with all this personally? What do you do with what's going on collectively? A friend of mine who posts on a somewhat regular basis on Facebook put up a post about all the protests going on. Hey, there's my buddy Carl. Yo, man. And welcome to everybody, by the way, if I hadn't mentioned it before, being back here. And watching all the drama unfolding in the U.S. with Black Lives Matter, the unfortunate and tragic killings in Portland and Kenosha, what's going on in other parts of the world, it's absolutely mad, and the whole place seems to be going mad. And maybe you've noticed that some of the people that you thought you knew over many years on social media or otherwise, their programming or their conditioned beliefs are coming out, and you're finding maybe you don't want to have much interaction with them, or you don't understand how to have an interaction with them. This is a time where you have to be really cognizant of not getting sucked into so many dramas of any type in the consensus reality. So keeping your own counsel might sound like you're stifling your truth, but it isn't that. So keeping true to oneself while going through a process a bit of withdrawing from the drama and the conflict and the chaos and the duplicity is going to help you in the long run, and it's actually going to help the consensus reality. How does that happen? Well, all it takes is a butterfly to start a hurricane in Brazil if it flutters its wings in New Hampshire in the United States. So what we've got to recommend here is that if you will keep your eye on where it is you want to be going and how you want to get there, that is really, it may sound selfish, it may sound incredibly selfish, but it's the only way to travel through these uncertain times. And the best part of uncertain times, or the best part of uncertainty is the amount of risk and courage it takes to do that, but also the amount of aliveness you will feel and the amount of support you will feel if you keep going into your center. Somebody came up with, guess it was a Tesla quote about gravity and magnetism. And there's some of the things that Nikola Tesla said that are really out there, and some of them make a heck of a lot of sense. But one of the things to remember here is that the center of you isn't dependent on gravity and isn't dependent on magnetism. It's just the core of your soul, the core of spirit. Energetically, it's beyond all of these dualistic forms. So that's where to ground to. Earthing is kind of an interesting thing. There's so much toxicity in nature. I have a client in speaking of which, in New Hampshire, who's saying she's having even a difficult time connecting with nature because of the amount of toxicity in nature due to human activity. So going to this place within, this kind of your earth core within, or to the Gaia Sophia core within, to the deep feminine within, that's your anchor point, or it could be your anchor point in meditation, in taking walks in nature, and actually becoming an agent of rejuvenation and healing within nature by focusing on this point in your heart and in your solar plexus. It's nothing complicated. This is no big complicated ritual or some kind of metaphysical heebie-jeebie stuff. It's just simple intention. And that's going to keep you on the rails, keep you on the tracks going forward. So holding to what your vision of heaven on earth looks like and working towards that realization, bringing that concept, that ideal into substantial reality. Because this reality system is incredibly fluid and incredibly impressionable. So any kind of positive joy that you can feel, any kind of positive energy you can just exude, as it were, by your very presence, is going to be something that the collective can be helped with. Now, going back to this thing about what's going on with Kenosha and in America and the election and everything, there's a funny thing that goes on with so-called attraction, repulsion, cause and effect. And this may be sounding very, very, in a way, sacrilegious, but I have found that the more that we focus or intend to kind of praying for a relative who needs help or is ill, or a friend who's going through a tough time and is depressed or suicidal, that's different. But when we're talking about getting together as a group and trying to focus or alter another's behavior or another's mindset or another's perspective, you are going to get a rebound. You're going to get a lot of resistance back from that individual or that group or even an entire nation. Because it is, in a way, a bridging of free will. It's an abridging or a crossing of a boundary that you weren't invited to cross. And so it's very important to recognize that if you're going to do any kind of energy or intention work or prayer about anything that's going on right now, to let it go, to be able to go into the place of whatever's for the highest and best good, I'm okay with that. My attachment to the outcome is what creates that resistance. Your attachment to any outcome is going to keep expanding the polarity or the resistance. So the less attachment you have to getting your way or what you think is the right way is actually going to be more beneficial than fervently desiring that people will suddenly wake up and change what they're doing or how they're thinking because of some concerted group meditation or effort. That has never worked. I know that there were experiments done with transcendental meditators in New York City, and crime dropped apparently over a period of time, but that's been debunked a number of times as well. What I feel to bring to everyone's attention is that any time that you, and this is not mine, this is Neale Donald Walsch, or God speaking through Neale Donald Walsch's first 3 books, whenever you intend or say or declare yourself to be or do something, the exact opposite will show up in the space in identical proportion and power. And that's just the way duality works. And this doesn't make duality wrong or evil or broken. Duality is all part of the oneness. It's part of the contrast that we get to experience, to be able to then decide, to choose, this is our power, to choose what serves us, what we feel is right for you and for me. But you don't get to make that choice for me, and I don't get to make that choice for you. Not ever. Not today, not ever. And so this is how it goes with any kind of intentions that we want to see in the world, how we want to see them play out, is that there are much larger forces at work here than our personal will, and we cannot impose it on an individual or a group or a nation. We can pray for the best and highest outcome. We can intend for the best and highest outcome, but we cannot force the change to happen. And if we try, we will only get more of what it is we seem to be trying to get rid of, okay? This just seems to be, from my observing it for the last quarter century, every time that there's an attempt to do that, it only makes matters a bit worse. It's like the oxymoron of a military solution or military intelligence. You know, these two things are not the same. They do not create a lasting change or solution. Going further with that, there are a couple of things here that are newsworthy. I bet you never heard of the Carrington event. Okay, this is important stuff. I think it is anyway. Two newsworthy things. The Carrington event, this is a warning from history. On September 1st, this is the anniversary of it, 1959, the most ferocious solar storm in recorded history engulfed the entire planet. It was named the Carrington event after a British scientist, Richard Carrington, who witnessed the flare that actually started the whole thing. Excuse me. The storm rocked Earth's magnetic field, sparked auroras over Cuba, the Bahamas, and Hawaii, and set fire to telegraph stations all over the place, and wrote itself into the history books as the biggest solar storm ever. Now, I'm going to post the link in the comments. This is from spaceweather.com. Now, here's the follow-up to that. But sometimes what you read in history books is wrong. The Carrington event was not unique, says Hisashi Hayakawa of Japan's Nagoya University, whose recent study of solar storms has uncovered other events of comparable intensity. While the Carrington event has long been considered a once-in-a-century catastrophe, historical observations warn us that this may be something that occurs on a more frequent basis. So, I'm just going to summarize. I'm not going to read the whole article. You can read it from the link. Sunspot activity is related to this. There was a 1770 magnetic storm that was also comparable to the Carrington event. Now, all these things, the 1859 event occurred just at the onset of the electronic communications age. All right, telegraph wires were being strung all over Europe and the United States. So it affected that network. Take a look up in the sky. Take a look at that handheld device in your hand. Everything is depending on wireless communications. And the entire power grid of the planet is dependent on wired communication. The storm that happened in 1989, solar storm that took out half of Canada's power grid and fried thousands of substations and transformers, was a pretty major event. I think it was a class 30, X-class 30 on the strength scale. So why I'm reading this is because these events seem to presage not just a change, or could presage a huge change in how we relate to the Earth and relate to the Sun and relate to our artificial electronic environment, but it could actually be a trigger for change in consciousness. All right, this is something that, again, when I said this force is beyond our control and understanding, it gets really interesting when you take into account that in 1859 this event occurred, and the next year the Civil War began in the United States, and the telegraph made a great, should we say, was a great, well, that's a relative term, a significant player in how that war was conducted. And don't think that that wasn't, observed and looked at with great interest in Europe, because it was, and it was applied in Europe later on in the conflicts that ensued there, and also between Russia and Japan in 1904 and World War I. So when we get into the understanding of how these events affect us at a biological level, that's one thing, but they also affect us on a consciousness level. And so with the Earth's magnetic fields being much weaker than they were in 1859 and more gamma radiation coming in, we are affected biologically and at an energetic level. So this is a great little article to make you go, The other thing is that there's a new book out, or coming out more accurately, on September 15th, and I've got to find it again. There we go. This is by Dr. Thomas Cowan and somebody named Sally Fallon, and I don't know who that is. But Dr. Thomas Cowan made a video, a short video on YouTube, I think it was about 10 minutes long, that premiered in March. Now it's been taken down, it's been deleted numerous times on a number of different platforms, certainly including this one that we're on right now. And the name of the book is The Contagion Myth. Now I'm going to read this with great interest because I've read Jeremy Nadler's book, The Struggle for a Human Future, and of course Arthur Furstenberg, PhD, on the artificial electromagnetic fields and the effects that have on human biology and all biology. In his book, it's just going on in my head. The invisible, it's going to come back. I'll post it in the link. You can look that book up. Let's think of the invisible universe. Anyway, it's called The Contagion Myth, and the subtitle is Why Viruses, including Coronavirus, Are Not the Cause of the Disease. Now, I won't mention it directly here on this broadcast because of the implications of Facebook, sending me to the penalty box. But suffice it to say that their perspective is based on groundbreaking magnetic biology research. Yes, it's new, but in any field of science, we have to use the scientific method in order to establish things, whether they be fact or not fact, not get into biased views or confirmation bias about, it's got to be this because it can't be anything else. I think that kind of closed-mindedness is pretty pervasive in the scientific circles these days. They won't listen to anything except their dogma, or nobody else is buying that. And so it's really important to keep an open mind during these times as well. Why? Because if we don't, then you're having your opinions or your beliefs or your perceptions around things manipulated. All right, not a big fan of that, personally. Okay, so enough on that. And the third thing is Facebook has changed its user terms and conditions. It popped up this morning, and October 1st is when they all go into effect. So I do recommend you find them and read them carefully. Now I can put the link in also on the comments page if you want. And decide what you want to do. Whether you're going to stay on this platform or minimize your use of it, or leave, whatever you're going to do. There are alternatives happening. There's MeWe, there is new video platforms, there is YouTube, there is Library, there's BitChute, and there's Telegraph and Signal and all these other messaging apps that are completely encrypted and secure and owned by the big tech giants. So this is also going to be important going forward, where you get your information from, how you share your information, and are you feeding the beast or starving it? That's not a polarity side. It's again comes down to what you choose that serves you and what you choose that can hopefully serve the collective or the consensus in a positive way. And, whenever you see these things only as a convenience, then you're actually not making the best choices or decisions for yourself. That's just my opinion. So I highly recommend you do a review, you take an inventory during this month and decide how you want to play in places like Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, and Google for that matter. I don't use Google Chrome anymore. I switched off everything that's Google related on my laptop and on my phone, even though they own the Android operating system. I've made it very difficult for them to throw ads at me or anything. It's really, really important to keep your electromagnetic and consciousness arenas as free of interference as possible over the next 4 months as we go through this Mars transit, and with major planets retrograde. The end of September, I'm kind of tipping my hand here, end of September, Saturn goes retrograde, Pluto goes, well, Jupiter happens in the middle of the month, goes direct, Saturn goes direct at the end of September, Pluto goes direct in October, so all those planets will be moving forwards by the time of the American election, but Mars will still be going backwards. This is going to be an interesting election, to say the least, if it indeed ever takes place. It's never happened before that an election of this nature, this size, has ever been postponed or temporarily put on hold. But if there is a huge second or third wave, the possibility exists that it could. Or if there's an attempt to steal the election, it could. So in other words, all bets are off, and you have to kind of prepare your own corner and prepare yourself as best as you can for the unexpected, because these are uncertain times. In fact, every time is uncertain. This just seems to be more uncertain than others that we've known in our lifetime, perhaps in recent memory. But I've lived through enough of the crises of the John F. Kennedy assassination, the Martin Luther King and RFK assassinations, and the civil rights upheaval that were going on, the Vietnam War protests, the collapse of the American economy because of the oil crisis in the mid-'70s. It goes on and on and on. There's always something, isn't there? There's always something. But these are the last gasps of a dying system. This paradigm is ending, and that is the end of the world as we know it. And we have chosen, you and I, to be here to not just witness it, but to be participating in it in some way according to what is appropriate for you and for me. And we cannot make those decisions or choices for another. We need to make them for ourselves. So doing inventory this month is a good exercise, especially with the fall equinox coming up on the 22nd and the sun moving into Libra. So this is our Virgo time. Analyze, not analyze, but analyze your deepest feelings about things, your perceptions, your cherished pets or deeply held beliefs, and your visions, your ideals, what it is that you want to get on with going forwards. And, no matter what happens, things are going to keep evolving and changing. It's not going to be easy at times, but it also, the amount of joy that you can generate, or the amount of joy that you can cultivate, or the amount of pleasure that you can cultivate, and the joy that comes with that, will stand you in good stead, but also really does help all of it. It helps everybody. Even if it's just a trickle of joy, that's kind of a honey, that's kind of a panacea, it's kind of a balm for those who are experiencing deep suffering or loss and difficulty, times of difficulty. Suicide rates are up. It's ridiculous, I don't know where I saw the stat that California's had more deaths by suicide than actually from COVID. I don't know if it's accurate. I can't prove anything. But you have to prove your experience and your feelings, your internal landscape emotionally, by how it is you conduct your own choices and how it is you conduct your own behaviors based on those choices. So that's it from today, from this going forward. It's the first day of the month, and it's going to be different than August and July, but it's not going to be any less intense. That's all I can guarantee you on that. It's not going to be less intense. It's just going to be different. And it's a trailer. It's a preview of coming attractions for October. So take deep breaths, get good rest, eat well, cultivate pleasure. I'm going to say more on this on Thursday. Thursday afternoon, 3 p.m., I'll be back. Also, I'm going to be looking at my participation, continued participation on this platform based on the changes in terms and conditions coming, and just on Facebook's general bad behavior. You know, the censorship, the manipulation, the bad screening of really unsavory things that don't get pulled. You know, whatever you participate with, you're either in a way tacitly supporting or giving energy to. So it's important that you look at the ethos of these companies and then check your own baggage, you know, check your own list of what it is that you choose to lend energy to and to participate with. There are alternatives for us to communicate and have dialogue through. There are always alternatives, okay? So, and there's more and more enterprising rebels, as it were, going out there and creating new opportunities. So, you know, be one of those, you know, do something proactive. Okay, that's it for me today. It's 3:33 p.m. on Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. And I look forward to seeing you on September 3rd at 3 p.m. right here on the same bat channel at the same bat time. And in the meantime, look after yourself and blessings on your journey. Bye.